You might be expecting this podcast to discuss hot baths, meditation techniques, and breathing exercises. But really, those are only just pressure releases, and they don't fix the true cause. The true issue is a contracted mind. And a contracted mind creates stress, upset, frustration, and impatience. A relaxed mind creates inspiration, connection, fresh ideas, and solutions to intractable problems. We're going to explore how you can relax into presence. This is the Releasing Mental Tension podcast with Rich Life. In this episode, we're going to be discussing some very incredible and transformational stories. And I never want anyone to hear that it's their fault that they don't feel well. This isn't a victim blaming session. Instead, I want you to find hope and inspiration in what we're about to talk about. I think it's a very human thing to get wound up about your health. And this is something that I've experienced, and it's also something that my guests that I'm having on the podcast today have also experienced. They have had health issues in their lives that they've gotten wound up about. And I think when we wind up about it, we contract around it, it makes it worse. And I also think a lot of the times when we contract, it is what is causing some of these health issues. When we have a lot of mental tension that is built up. So that's why we want to talk about releasing mental tension. And that's the name of the podcast. I'm your host, Rich Life. And I have two amazing guests today. Their names are Kevin and Britta. And they're actually a couple. So I'm going to call them a conscious couple. What? They're looking at each other like, well, I've just met you. No, they're a conscious couple. They actually are both coaches in something called the 3 Principles Understanding of Mind, Consciousness, and Thought. And we've had some really transformative conversations about health so far. And now you get to join our conversation. So welcome, Kevin.
Thanks. Yeah.
And welcome, Britta.
All right, thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And one of the things I notice about you is you're both very relaxed around each other and also within yourselves. So it's been really cool to experience both you as individual people and as a couple. And it's the first couple I've ever had on the podcast too. So that's kind of new and exciting. I'd like to start out with Kevin. You told a really amazing story about pain that you thought would never go away, and it just kind of vanished poof. Would you tell us that story right now?
Yeah. So the first time I really remember it. So I was a freshman in high school, was running track. And that year I ran up on varsity. I set these records. It was like I was so free and I performed at such a high level. And then after that, I remember looking I was in the record book and I had ran the fastest time as a freshman. And then okay, what? And I it was, oh man, I got to keep that. And and before this, I was I felt very insecure. I was very shy. And then this was sort of suddenly I was seen, I was known, I was winning. And then innocently, I put a ton of pressure on myself to keep that up. I didn't realize that that's what I was doing at the time. And then that manifested as physical pain.
Mm.
And my journey with physical pain, it would always manifest somewhere that sort of made sense. And I, without going into details, but I ended up having multiple surgeries on my testicles. I had surgery on my arm, uh, lived in chronic pain for most of my life. And like you said, now that's like that stuff's just gone.
Mm.
Um, but I didn't realize at the time the pain, like the amount of pressure, the amount of mental tension I was putting on myself, manifesting as physical pain. The first time it like really went away for me was like so 5 or 6 years after this, and I go study abroad in college, and I didn't do much studying when I was there. I sort of like it was more hanging out, and at the time I had a business. I was doing a lot of things, and I just let that all go, and then like I was in a more relaxed feeling, and so then the pain went away. But guess what? Then I come back, and then the pain, that's when then the pain went to my arm, and then I had surgery on my arm, and it was just this living in chronic pain. I mean, living in pain, trying, there was always something. There's always something wrong with my body. And I was always looking for like who could help me, what's the fix? And then that created a lot of stress because constantly worrying about what's wrong, is this going to go away? I remember I find this guy's work, Dr. Sarno, and he's got a book, Healing Back Pain. And the first page, it's like he's describing me better than I could have described myself. And he's basically describing somebody with an incredible amount of mental tension, perfectionist, hard on yourself, pressure, you got to always be good, all that. And his hypothesis was this is like a defense mechanism to keep you from feeling these repressed emotions. So once you just allow yourself to feel those emotions and know that the pain, like, although it's like real, it's not real and it can go away. And I had experiences where like 2 days later, like 95% of the pain was just gone. But then it would always come back for me. And it still looked to me at this time like, oh, okay, it must be because I have repressed emotions. There's like journaling practices. I need to like do all these things to make sure I like get in touch with these emotions so then I won't be in pain. So then I still was in pain most of the time. It was very like on, off, on, off. And then more recently, and there was sort of like a rock bottom with it too. I guess I won't go into that now. It's much longer, but like health issues kept getting worse and worse until I found this understanding was a big part of that. And where I started realizing that, well, if like I was living in a really scary world where something's wrong with my body and it's probably going to get worse, that's a really stressful world to live in. And for me, that created a lot of tension. And then that tension manifested in physical pain. And then I realized, like in having these insights about like, oh, that's actually what's going on. Actually, this is an issue with my thinking and my relationship to thinking and worrying and believing something's wrong with me. And by realizing that, by seeing that, like for example, now when if a symptom comes up, if physical pain comes up, old me would think, oh fuck, and then go down a rabbit, maybe going on YouTube to find videos or looking on Reddit, all these things to try to figure out what's wrong with me, how do I fix it? Now symptom comes up, pain comes up, and it's, oh, like this is an invitation to come back to stillness, to connect with well-being, to slow down, to not look towards this is a problem I need to fix and figure out, which just creates more tension, which like is what was the thing that was creating the pain. Instead, it's like, oh, dude, you need to like relax. There's nothing wrong with you. Just come back to your wisdom. Come back to like just slow down. And then, yeah, like I never thought, like it really looked to me like chronic pain. This was just going to be a thing that I'd have the rest of my life and I to manage it. And then it just went poof. And I still have some pain sometimes, but it's not at all like living in constant pain all the time. That's my ramble.
And there's a couple of things that I really heard in that, where if you truly believe that there's something wrong with you, then that's going to be a reality for you. And that was so true for me. I had acid reflux that I was telling you about, and I thought this is going to get worse. I did the Google, I did the Redditing, and tried to solve it using the power of my own thoughts and intellect, because I'm very brilliant. I don't know if you know this about me.
Me too. Me too.
And I can do everything. I can do everything on my own. But it is I just have to figure it out and figure the right person to listen to. But then you realized, oh, I'm actually okay. I have wellness within me. And that I can take myself away from that using the power of my own mind, using the power of my own thoughts. And I do it innocently. I don't mean to. And when I have pain that's coming up in your body, at least this is what I'm hearing for you. When I'm having pain coming up in my body, it means that I'm using my mind in a way that's creating tension, stress, and upset. And then it becomes almost like a guide, like you were talking about. Then it's your friend. And then it shows you, hey, it's like an early warning sign. It says, hey, this is how you're using your mind. And Britta, you had a story too that you said was very powerful and connected with this. Tell us more.
Yeah, I can share. And before sharing, like, something that stands out to me is how often we start to see that there's a mind-body connection. And then rather than it being, oh my God, I just need to fix my body, it becomes, oh my God, I need to fix my thinking. And then this very empowered, like, okay, I know I have some like negative narratives in there, so I need to fix my narratives and create new ones because I see something about it being more inside out. But the inside still looks like a problem. So I'm going to go in and like deal with that. Like I see that often in people who come to work with me. Like they've already got that there's a mind-body connection. Or that, okay, there's something where our thinking does something with our reality, but now I'm all freaked out about my thinking and scared of my thinking, and I'm scaring myself about scaring myself. And I just want to like point to that like, that's not what we're talking about. Yeah, not so helpful. That one might actually be more suffering than just thinking it's a physical thing to solve, because you can't ever get your mind. It's like, oh my God, there's this enemy in there I'm trying to get. Yeah. Okay, so I can share some of my experience with, my body reflecting my thinking. And I'm so grateful. I've had like really good health my whole life, pretty much, like really great. I'm so grateful I haven't dealt with chronic pain. And about 2 years ago, a little more, I suddenly started having all of these digestive issues. Not intensely so, but just enough that like suddenly my stomach was bloating a lot, which was not something I had ever really experienced in my life. Even like menstruating, I didn't really have that problem, and always felt quite lucky. It's like, oh, all my friends have digestive issues and I don't. Like, aren't I the blessed among us? Probably because my mom did all the right things. It was very much, I've done all the right things. And then suddenly I was having these digestive issues and my stomach was bloating and it just felt like heavy after almost everything I would eat. And I was trying to figure out, what am I eating? What am I doing? okay, let me like do all the right things. Let me fast. Okay, let me only eat this way. Let me eat like just trying all of the tactics I could think of. And I'd started figuring out how to manage it. And this was maybe 6, 9 months ago. I was filling out for a health coach I was working with, a dear friend of mine. Um, I was filling out kind of a story, like some of my background, my history, basically, like when did this thing start? And I suddenly saw, oh my God, it started when I got on a scale at a doctor's office and I saw a number on the scale that freaked me out. Like it was higher than the identity number I had decided my body should weigh. And I had all this identity around, I'm really thin and my weight is always this or under this number. And I saw a number that freaked me out. And like what my body did, I remember the moment it like contracted in my gut around my belly. Was suddenly I had shame there and tension. Like suddenly I was holding tension in that part of my body. And it was like that day forward, I started bloating and having all of this strange stomach stuff and then trying to manage it and then created a whole strange relationship with food for a while, which like I've since released. It's much better now. Lovely. But what was cool for me is because I saw that that's what happened. Yeah, again, 6, 9 months ago or so. And it was already at a point in my life where I have this understanding that, oh, I have innate well-being and I have innate wisdom. That was just really unhelpful thinking. I don't need to do anything about it. And it was the day I saw it, I haven't had that in my body since at all. And had started to get better, but it was still sometimes flaring up pretty intensely. And I'd be like, oh my God, I'm bloating again. What did I eat? Was it the nut butter? Was it I had a banana too late and like trying to find, and I just saw it and I literally haven't had a problem with it since. Yeah, like it can be that simple. Like just seeing the thing. Oh my God, that was unhelpful. I don't have to do that anymore. And sometimes that's enough for it to totally dissolve mind and body.
I was a weight loss coach.
Yeah.
No, I know. That's the punchline. No. So I was helping clients with all of their thoughts around foods and feelings around foods and trying to help them feel better. And it's so funny that I think more of the time, and if we're kind of honest, if we really look at it, almost all of the time, there are exceptions, there's like medical conditions, but it's our thoughts about the foods that we're eating that is determining how we're feeling rather than the foods themselves. Now, if you go and eat like candy for 5 days straight, you're probably not going to feel very good. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Well, I'm not going to try it, but I'm guessing. I probably did it as a kid, so. And I'm alive. Wow. But I think we have this tendency to optimize and to want to feel our best. And we're afraid of not being the best versions of ourselves because of something that we ate or something that we did. And that contraction causes a lot of issues, a lot of stomach issues. It shows up as maybe food anxiety for some people. I had food anxiety for years. And it was just growing and growing and growing. And the other thing that you pointed to was that it wasn't a new technique or it wasn't a new like food item that you would get rid of that helped you. It was actually a new understanding. It was a realization It was a new thought. It was a new way of thinking about the issues that you were having, both pain and food, for the both of you. And that's powerful to see. That means that these intractable problems can kind of just vanish. I think that's very hopeful. And if you're listening to this and you have something that you're struggling with, it's okay if you're struggling with it. And what if maybe a new way of thinking could help you release? Releasing mental tension could help you release whatever challenge it is that you're facing. It is definitely possible. I would like to invite you to be open to it. We're going to be talking about this more. Would you like to speak to new ways of thinking that can help with something that seems intractable?
Yeah. I mean, I think like one of the foundational shifts that really helped me. So one, like you said, like just being open to like, oh, what if this is a thinking? Then also like what Britta said, to make sure then that doesn't become the thing to think about more. And then to like, now I need to change my thinking. I have to get out to have better thinking. But actually like, no, it's more the insight that like, oh, this is my thinking. And it's more about noticing, like, can you spot what your thinking is? And like if after you eat, like I remember I had sinus issues for a while. They ended up going poof. They went poof after, so I had sinus issues and then it would get worse sometimes after I had dairy. And I was convinced like, oh, I definitely have a dairy, like, yeah, it's not, but like sometimes I want to eat dairy, so I will. So I remember I eat some dairy. I think I had some ice cream, and I'm laying on the couch, and I'm laying there, and it's more of a noticing, right? Like it's a way of being that's more relaxed, open. It's not trying to figure everything out. It's more just like an openness and a curiosity. So I'm laying there on the couch and I'm noticing that my sinuses start to feel tighter and tighter. And I notice the thinking of like, oh fuck, am I gonna have a sinus flare? Like, and I'm like, but I see that for what it is. You talked about this, like the like noticing the thinking, but like also with the understanding at the same time. So it wasn't scary thinking that I didn't notice and then got on the train of scary thinking and just kept scaring myself about how my sinuses are probably going to be worse all night long. Instead, it was like, oh, I noticed that scary thinking. Huh. And let me just like sit back a bit. And then I was sitting there so it's like, right, instead of going up to the intellect to try to figure out and solve this problem, it's like, oh, let me just look towards stillness. Let me just hang out with this and let me actually like, let me not know what's going on. Like, can I be willing to just not know instead of, oh, I know this is dairy. And so I'm willing. So sitting in some not knowing, sitting there, it just occurs to me. Like, wow, it seems like I'm holding some tension in like the same way if I were to like hold my fit, it would almost be like if I came to you and I was like, Rich, I've had this hand issue for 3 years. My hand just feels there's a lot of tension in there. Like, and then I'm trying to like figure it out or fix it versus I saw that, wait a second, I think that's what I'm doing with my sinuses. I think I'm tightening my face. And then when I add the scary thinking on top of it, that's tighter. And upon, again, like it's like the insight of like realizing, like noticing, seeing for myself, like, oh, I'm the one creating tension in my face. And then I think I did just start like kind of laughing. It was like, oh my God, I've done so much stuff to try to figure out these sinus issues. And actually I've just been innocently like tensing that part of my body. So it stops doing that. It's not to say that I never do, but it's like noticing more when I'm, like noticing when I'm doing this, and then just like, oh yeah, I notice I'm doing it. Let me like let go. And I don't have sinus issues anymore. And I mean, I have many stories like this of just similar, and clients too, of similar things where something that looks like, oh, it's this thing, and it just goes poof, because actually we were innocently creating it with our thinking and just looking in a different direction instead of to thinking and to analysis and to figuring out, and there's something wrong with me and I need to fix it. Coming into stillness, into not knowing, into wondering, and being open to seeing something fresh and new.
Mm-hmm.
Do you add anything to that?
I'm just having like seen you through so much of this journey the last like going on 3 years. I'm thinking of your relationship with sleep. So Kevin had a really hard time sleeping for what, 3 years?
Yeah.
Like kind of underslept for 3 years.
And getting worse and worse. And then like for like the last year, sleeping 4.5, 5 hours a night, waking up, like just like insomnia, like just really poor sleeping. And I was still caught up in that, trying to like, and I did all the things. Blackout curtains.
Like sleep hygiene, this man's sleep hygiene is pristine. Like the room is 64 degrees. He's got the cooling pad. He's got the blackout curtains. He stops eating at the correct time. He doesn't drink after a certain, like just all the things.
I got that dialed. I got that stuff dialed in. Didn't help. Like it helped, but it didn't resolve the under. And then I started working with this woman, Susan Koshin, and I'm telling her about the sleep issue I have. And the first question she asked me, because she's looking more from a sane perspective, not of like there's something wrong with you, but and she asked me, she's like, oh, something in you wants you to be awake. And that had never occurred to me. I had been trying to fix this problem that I'm not sleeping, and instead looking in the direction of like, oh, wow, maybe there's some part of me, there's something in me that wants to be awake. Okay, that's interesting. Let's hang out with that. Let's explore that. Let's not try to figure it out, but let's like wonder about that. And then it's like I got in touch with this part of me that I got in touch with that part of me. I got some intuitive, and it just sort of told me, like, it was basically like trying to wake me up and be like, dude, you need to like go look, you need to address this. You need to do this. You've been avoiding this. Go do that. And oh, okay. So I did the thing. And then like literally within a day or two after doing the thing, suddenly I'm just sleeping fucking great every night. Sleep hasn't been an issue.
I'm also remembering before then, there was a point you had gotten to where you'd be in the like full flare up of the symptom, like awake at 3 a.m. and you weren't caught up about it anymore. You had just started to relax.
I mean, that's a huge, like that shift from like, oh no, I woke up again at 3. Oh shit, I'm going to be tired all day again. And just versus just like, can I practice just acceptance and just be like, oh, it's 3 a.m. and I'm up. Okay, yeah, it occurs to me to get out of bed and I'm going to go lay over there and listen to a book on tape. But like it from a different place. Like that seems to be one of the keys to health. I mean, it's that same thing of like looking towards stillness, looking towards the more intuitive mind, wisdom, rather than this is a problem and now I need to fix it and figure it out and do something and da 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 da, which is just, I mean, it works like if you want to create mental tension, it works every time. Like I've tried it a lot. It works.
I've done all the tests. Me too. I've done a lot of tests myself on that. It sounds like you're describing a relaxed mind, a mind that is is listening. It's not trying to figure things out. It's not trying to analyze. And really, that's just what presence is just this open, relaxed, and listening mind. And the thing is that I want to share with people, and I think you do too, is that it's not something that you cultivate. It's not like I'm going to now relax my mind by doing all of these things or figuring out how to relax my mind. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, okay, I get that having a relaxed mind is amazing and it can have us have health conditions kind of disappear. It can create miracles, literally, in our lives. Okay, what are the 3 steps to do it? And it's not something that you can do in 3 steps. It doesn't even have 1 step. It's actually the opposite of a step because you're letting go of the steps. You're letting go of figuring it out. It's an ending of an action rather than a beginning of one. You are subtracting instead of adding. And I think everybody with their health is looking to add. What are the things that I need to do? What are the sleep practices, the sleep hygiene that I need to have, or the foods that I need to eat? Heck, I did it too. Like, I was so interested in longevity and I read all of the books and I pretty much longevity myself into an early grave. Like, and you have the ability and the power to do that using the power of your own thinking and your own mind. And when you start to see that, oh, actually, these things are telling me that I'm using my mind in a way that is really hurting me. Now there are friends. That's great. I'm seeing that more and more. And they're not a problem anymore. They become less and less of a problem and more of a signpost.
Yeah, something that's just coming to my mind, hearing you speak. Like I remember hearing stuff like this for a while. I think it was in like meditation teacher where, and so I guess I want to speak to that person that might be listening that's sort of, because I remember for me, like at first when I heard this stuff, I was still trying to like think my way into this. And it's like it's not that.
Don't do that.
And then I think there's sort of like, for me, there was sort of like a period where it was almost like, then I would like freak out and try to like think because they're still trying to figure that. And it's like, no, that like so know that is not it. And then you have to look in a different direction. And the different direction is so ordinary and so simple. We all do this. We all know how to do this. It's like I like the Dick and Bettinger, I think, talked about like the vacation feeling. Like look towards the vacation, like that feeling you get when you're on vacation where you just sort of like, that was the feeling that I allowed myself to tap into when I studied abroad, and that's why my pain went away. That feeling's here now, even if symptoms, even if stress, it's like looking in the direction of that like easy feeling where you feel good and relaxed. And then if you notice that part of you that's trying to figure this out or fix it, like that can be there too. But just like, but if you get on that train with it, just know that's not what we're talking about. Is not like, you will never find it in that direction.
Yeah. It's like at some point, didn't doctors prescribe people go on holiday, like go to the seaside, go get sun? Like I've read that in like books set in the Jane Austen time period. That was a thing. It was go away on holiday. That was what they would tell people. You're unwell, go away. Like that might have been great advice, but the cool thing is that's also a placebo. Like you don't actually need to go to, you don't need to go spend the $4,000 to go to Hawaii. Yeah. You actually can tap into it now. But they were onto something that might have been a more helpful prescription than, and here, take all of these drugs.
Like, I just want to like underline that because that's so profound, that realization, that insight of like I've had this myself for clients, and there's sort of like this intuitive clarity of like, oh, I just like need a vacation. And then we can also like, it's like wisdom is being like, I need a vacation. And then we can go up into our thinking to be like, okay, I'll plan this thing. And okay, a month from now, I'll be able to go. And it's like, but what if why you want to go on a vacation is to get in touch with that feeling of being on vacation? And if that's the case, what if you allowed yourself to feel that right now? Like, what if you allowed yourself to, like, that's when healing seems to start. Like when it's like, wow, my body feels fucked. I have this is wrong, but like, okay, I'm letting go of the, so I'm going to metaphorically go on vacation right now. Like you could do this right now. And it's like hanging out there is where we find health. And it's here.
Kind of makes me think of like thoughts per minute, like Michael Neal and George Pransky talk about the thoughts per minute, that you can rev yourself up and you have like 50 thoughts per minute. You're really calm. You're feeling really good. And then you have more like 100 and 120. And then you start to have these anxiety. It's going to show up differently for everyone. So, and that's what I want to point to too, is that it's the exact same. What happens is the exact same for everyone. It's a mental contraction. So the vehicle of this is the exact same, but it shows up differently for everyone. And it might show up as pain or stomach issues or acid reflux or food anxiety or hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other things. And everybody's been so focused on how it shows up, but they're not looking towards what's really causing it, which is mental contraction, the revving up of the personal intellectual mind. And you were talking about the vacation feeling or like needing to go on a vacation. If you're up at like 200 thoughts per minute, you're like, I needed to go on vacation every 2 months. I need to go on one every week. You burn out quicker. And what if you let go of the gas pedal? What if you let the car coast down? And it's a different feeling. Everybody's so used to pressing on the gas pedal to solve everything. So letting go of the gas pedal feels like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. But we found that, wow, does it work? Even though it seems to go in the opposite direction of what we think we're supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it works for everything. Like the more I hang out in that, my business flourishes, my partnership flourishes, my friendships flourish, my community connections flourish, my body's well. Like things, it's just like everything gets better. And I think there's so much fear we have of like, oh my God, if I stop pressing the gas pedal, then my life's going to fall apart. Because that's actually what's making my business work and that's why I'm successful and like all of these things. No, like it's just wrong. It's just like so innocently wrong. Yeah.
Like it's working in spite of those things.
Yes. Yes.
And I want to say too that they're like, so if someone was going to look in this direction, there sometimes, like my experience at first, it seemed to get worse before it got better. Like it was like it was so familiar to me to have the gas pedal down that it was unfamiliar. Like it was new to my identity to take my foot off the gas pedal. And so at first there was a period of like my psyche being so scared when like I started, like wisdom was like, take a break. It's 11 a.m. Yeah, it's 11 a.m. But like you're done working for the day. And I was in terror for a bit because my psychology, it's still like, I was afraid that I'm fucked and it's all going to fall apart. So like it felt worse at first, but I had enough experiences of trusting wisdom. And I'm like, shit, yeah, it is. Okay. Yeah. I'm really scared that if I take a break, it's going to fall apart. And then it was really scary for a bit. But then it didn't fall apart. And I actually, for me, I started working less and less, and my business started working more and more. And it was we had this joking thing for a while of like, I'm going to take one more week of like taking it really easy and doing nothing. Because whenever I like did nothing, like I do a little thing here and there, but it was coming from a different place. And then over time it was like, oh, maybe this is just the new normal. Like that, like for me, thermostat was so set at like overdrive that like, and now my mantra lately has been like, yeah, I'll do something, but not much for my business. It's like if I get to the end of the day and I'm like, yeah, that was like a 4 out of 10. I'm like, that nailed it. Nailed it. Yeah. But I just want to say, like, sometimes it might look like it's getting worse before it gets better because it's an edge to your identity and it's going to feel like a threat and a violation to who you are. And so it might be really scary at first. And that passes. And did you have something you wanted to say?
I did. We'll see if it comes back. Yeah. Oh, this idea of do less. My friend I've mentioned, Elizabeth Rose, she's a nutritionist and female physiology, like health guru. And she says often about people's health, like you're doing too much. Like when people share their health routines, like this is what I do to stay well. I cold plunge 3 times a week and I eat in this way and I do a 24-hour fast once a month on the moon and like all the things. Like here's my laundry list of like how I maintain wellness. And her joke is like, you're doing too much. Like you're just doing too much. And that's true for our health. And it's true for the nature of being a human. Like it's true with our thinking. You're doing too much. Like act like you really are doing too much. It's not helping. It's more that like slowing down. Because when we slow down, we have more access to wisdom. It's just like really obvious the slower and more still we get.
And to speak, I have an insight that I really speaks to what you were talking about, that what is nourishing to the soul is always frightening to the ego. And also what you were talking about, Britta, that we have this body that is full of life. It's full of this life intelligence that wants to thrive. And sometimes we just kind of have to get out of its way. And that's the really good news, is that that's the reason that it can be easy. You just have to get out of its way, and also to know that I have a body that wants to thrive. And that is my default state. That is the core within me. It wants to thrive both mentally and physically. And it is an allowance. It is I don't have to figure it out with my intellectual mind, that I have this intelligence within me that can express itself when I'm not so clouded and I'm not running around up in here and creating a blockage of mental tension all of the time. And you were talking about how that comes through when you quiet down and you're still. So thank you so much for being on this podcast. If I want you to share where people can find you, and one last maybe little nugget that you would like to leave our listeners with.
Oh, let's see. Well, you can find my website is kevinlawrence.org. You can email me at kevin@kevinlawrence.org. And yeah, one thing. Yeah, what if you're already healthy? Like, regardless of what's going on, what your experience is, like, what if you are? Like, and not to figure that out, but to like just let that drop in. Like, what if you are health?
Okay. Okay, yeah, website is brittakristen.com. Kristen with an I-N at the end. And yeah, you could email me at britta@brittakristen.com. Yeah. Yeah, my invitation would be to slow down. Like right now, in this moment. Slow down. And when you slow down, what do you already know to do? Like, good stuff tends to happen when we ask that question. I recommend it.
This is the Releasing Mental Tension podcast with Rich Life. I'm on a mission to help people release their mental tension because I know that it helps them to be more capable, creative, and compassionate human beings. And I need your help. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you'd like more resources, visit richliferealization.com. Your vibrant life is a single thought away.